Hello, fellow travelers. And we have a great show today on Traversing the Stars podcast. Today's special guest is Stephanie Williams. You know her as the writer of Nubia and the Amazons from DC comic books. Now come join me as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Stephanie Williams. Thank you for coming to the Traversing the Stars podcast.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's definitely my pleasure. I've been enjoying what you've been doing with Nubia and the Amazons.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. It would totally suck if that was not how you felt and we have to get through this interview. So thank you.
Definitely my pleasure. So as I prepare for interview you, and I tend to do my research, and I read on your webpage an interesting quote from you, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. You said, I know how I got here, and it's only the beginning. So if you could trace your path to through a few your destinations that led you to where you are now, not the podcast, but your success in the industry.
Yeah.
What would those three major destinations be?
So 7 years that I've spent working research as an electron microscopist, thinking that I wanted to go back to school to get my PhD, but quickly was like, actually, no, I love science, but not enough to, well, I wouldn't have had additional loans, but to be in school longer, it was just a no for me. So once I came to grips with that, having my son was the next big thing that kind of pushed me, because that got me into podcasting and talking about the things that I love, which is comics, everything genre related. So like your horror, sci-fi, all of that. And then from there was to start writing. So to transition from podcasting to writing, and finally leave that 9 to 5, that was just sucking my soul dry. So taking that leap with the help of course, the supportive and the biggest financial help of my husband, because he, works full time. So he was like, hey, you're doing well enough with the freelance writing. I can take care of everything else, but like, let's see what happens when you're able to devote, more than 25% to this stuff, because you're not coming home from work burnt out. And it was life-changing, because from there, I mean, it wasn't all, bells and whistles, but it was life-changing. Of course, some moments that suck, but compared to still being at that job, which I did not want to be at, I'm just very thankful.
So what were those comic books that you were reading that you fell in love with that made you want to become, well, I guess first a comic book historian, podcaster, but also just a comic book writer?
So I've always been a huge fan of Christopher Claremont, as a lot of X-Men fans are, especially have been reading, just really want to get into the core 5, which I consider to be Cyclops, Jean, Rogue, Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, Kitty, all of them. I don't know, like, I just really love the interpersonal stuff that you got from him. And wasn't even just when he's working on the X-Men. A lot of what I love about Misty Knight and Colleen Wing came from Chris. Also me actually liking Iron Fist for a little bit.
Oh, wow. You
From
don't
him as
hear
well.
that name dropped too often.
Right, yeah, you don't hear it dropped at all, but seeing all of them work together. I mean, he gave us, Colleen kind of lusting after Cyclops a little bit and leaving him with her apartment key and a note. And I'm just like, girl, if you only knew the drama that comes with that man, you do not, it's not worth it. So Christopher Claremont, and then I would say Dwayne McDuffie would be next, because also like him, just a lot of the interpersonal character work. A lot of days, like presently, you don't get a lot of bubbles, like thought bubbles, which is like one of my favorite things in comics, because I want to know why the heck, Batman decided to not break that guy's kneecaps. Like, tell me what that inner dialogue is, and what his reasoning is. Like, I love that stuff. So those are the two comic writers, like early on for me, showed me like, yo, if you love Cape Comics, that's great. The punching, the saving the world, all that's wonderful, but also like who these characters are and why they make the choices that they make that either infuriate us or make us happy. Like, why do they kind of do it? It was very soap opera-y. And thanks to my grandparents, I like soaps. So comics gave me that. I was just like, yeah, so my soap operas, but they're just wearing spandex and capes.
Well, I like that you mentioned something that I really do enjoy about comic books, and unfortunately, I'm actually seeing that we see the demise of the thought bubble. It feels like it's
Yeah.
either been pushed to captions, a colored coded caption for that one character, or it's
Yeah.
been totally thrown out. And as someone who, comic books were the only medium that had a thought bubble. It's like, to me, it was like part and parcel to comic books is that thought bubble, and yeah, it bothers me too that they're on the way out.
Yeah, because like you're right, you will just get the captions. And like sometimes the captions really work, but I don't know, something about those little dots coming from the character's head, something about that just changes everything. I don't know, like it just gives a little bit extra reasoning for the stuff that you can't see with the art.
Mm. So, as a comic book historian, why do you think trends have moved away from not only the thought bubble, but also the sound effect, which is also a part of comics that belong there and they're being kicked out?
I have been thinking about that, and I wonder if it's because of just trying to focus on the art, which we should be doing anyway. But I mean, without those, you have little less stuff taking up space to cover up the art, but also, the type of storytelling that people are driven to. And I don't know if this is recently or what, but I'm finding that people aren't as excited for the character driven story, like, which sounds crazy to say because like, well, how else would you tell a story? But like there
Mm.
are other ways to like drive a story if you're just focusing on just, I don't know, external factors. But like I love an interpersonal journey for a character. Like it doesn't always have to be, hey, aliens are about to take over. Like, sure, they might, but like what's going on? Like, how is Peter paying? How is he making rent? Like, how is him living this dual life having an effect on him and May? And like, does that blow up into something bigger or like cascade into why he makes this really terrible decision when it comes to uh the Green Goblin or something like that? Like, I feel like because I don't know, like maybe like really hard character driven stories aren't just what people want. And when you're used to binging, you don't really have to focus on. I mean, like I've
Mm.
had to be patient with my own writing because like, oh shit, I'm not rating a trade right now. I'm doing issue by issue. Like I'm making this issue by
Yeah.
issue. Um, and like that sucks because you want all of it together at the
Right.
same
Right.
time. But I mean, there goes like being patient and I don't know. Like I guess for me, like I feel like that's some of why we're just not seeing those things. But bring them back.
I agree 100%. I mean, kind of, I feel like, I've been buying comic books now for, God, it's been a long time, 30 years probably. Actually, no, I'm 40. God, shit, I'm 42. 33 years, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
33 years I've been buying comic books for. And I think, like, on some level, people are so obsessed with trying to prove that they're literary, so taking away, like, the 60s bubbles and the sound, but then you're kicking
Yeah.
out the characterization, and it's like, you're missing you're missing this whole thing. Like, it's like that was part of what made them good. That's part of what allowed you to have characterization in a way that only comic books could. And it's like people are just getting like, extremely confused on things.
Yeah.
And I think too, though, I think also, and I may be wrong with this, like you probably have, as the historian, probably can answer this better than I can, but I feel like because comic books are especially the big two, are trying to so big into scope and the large story. And as an indie
Mhm.
writer, I do love my indie comic books. I have my own characters. I notice that sometimes if you're not careful, the action drives you quicker, and it's hard to slow down and break and do thoughts and discussion and building. And if you keep forgetting about that, then you're stuck without the thought bubbles and the characterization and the little moments.
I mean, 100% totally agree. And I feel like for the big two, it's been the doggone MCU. Now, do I enjoy those movies? I absolutely do. I do. But I've also noticed like there has been an effect on not even just their own comic book properties, but some of the indie stuff as well, because I mean, I don't fault anybody for, wanting this, but yeah, like people are really into just especially cape comics like those movies. So, and a lot of we've seen other comics that aren't capes get made into TV shows, The Walking Dead and got
Mm.
Invincible now and what was it? The Road
Oh, Road to
damn it.
Perdition.
Yes, like that
Yes.
being made into, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not just, I don't know, like if you write a comic, there's a chance that maybe you have an option for a TV or movie, but like when you see these things, everything just seems so grand in scope. But for the actual comic, that's not it because it's a totally different medium.
Hmm.
So if you are not really understanding how comics works, and the purpose of the medium, and you're thinking of it in terms of I'm going to turn this into a movie or show, then no, you're not really focused on the stuff that you need to, because
Hmm.
you're wanting to use a totally different storytelling medium in another one.
I agree with you.
If any of that makes sense.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I was thinking about this just a little while ago about Batman, and I used to read Batman all the time, and especially in the 80s and 90s. I remember the Batman stories, like the Rogue Gallery. He stops a bank robbery, he solves this crime. He's
Mm-hmm.
find the Riddler, and he's following him across the clues to do this. But Batman in the last maybe 10 years has been all like the city of Gotham is about to be destroyed. It's like where's the little story where he stops this interesting, unique bank robber that he needs to solve the puzzle and stop that guy. It's all
Yes.
grandiose. The city of Gotham is on fire again. The insurance must be insane. And whoever lives there is insane. But it's like at some point, let's back up just a little bit and tell some Batman stories that were just him being the detective, stopping the regular crimes, not the
Yeah.
world ending ones.
No, just like your little petty crime thief for the week or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think to kind of just bring this back to Nubia and the Amazons, like that was some of my fear going in with the type of story that we were wanting to tell for Nubia. Because for me, the importance was one to like flesh out her character and like begin to explore what that is and what it could be. And I don't like, there's no way to do that if the mascara is like literally on fire or like there's this huge thing happening. And I was like, well, crap, it's gonna have to be something that's really intimate. And then that's scary to want to go forth with that because it's not the big bombastic thing. But I mean, you write the story that is best to write. So, you let go of all of that. But that's something that I thought of when we were like just trying to come up with the story and how to really drive her character.
Now, I find so when you're writing something like Nubia and the Amazons, okay, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Trying to think of the best phrase, pushing against it. In other words,
Yeah.
you have the whole years of the weight of that Wonder Woman is connected to the
Yes.
story. You have the whole DC universe plowing forward to whoever the next event's going to be in the DC
Yeah.
universe. You are introducing Nubia, who not just as a character, but she's the new queen. And we all
Yeah.
know Hippolyta is the queen we've been used to for 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also introducing all these whole supporting cast of unique characters that you're also trying to give time to, and you're on issue 4. So
Yeah.
my question is, how the hell are you doing this?
I have no idea. No idea, because honestly, to reintroduce Nubia, who essentially you are kind of treating like a new character because she just really hasn't had the history, and the history that she has had has been dodgy and either no longer exists because of all the different changes to the DC universe or whatever. So that's happening. And then introducing 5 more characters, like what the, on top of the fact that people really don't know individual Amazons like that, just because you don't get enough time to spend with them when Diana is like in man's world most of the time. And then when she does come home, it's because some drama has happened. So you don't get to really focus. So the thought process there was, I mean, Nubia, it's called Nubia in the Amazon. So we not only need to reintroduce Nubia, but also just reintroduce folks with the mascara and just what it means to be an Amazon and what it looks like to be an Amazon. So the creation of the new characters was really to be kind of like this through line for readers where as they are learning as you are, kind of how things are. So it provided great moments and excuses to do the Amazon Fight Club. because I'm thinking like, well, what the heck are they doing on this island? So to introduce a fun concept like that, to show like taverns and bars, which you all will see shortly in issue 5, and just some other cultural things that happen on this island. Some of their like their feasts and the way that they celebrate things. So like how do they welcome new Amazons? So trying to give some insight to that. And then if you come to Themyscira through the Well of Souls, like how do you figure out who you're gonna be? Like what's that, like what is your place in the society? So I mean, Nubia being queen, was a task, because why would you care about her being queen if you don't even care for the island itself and its inhabitants?
Mm.
So it was really important to try our damnedest to balance the two, because they go hand in hand. And they go hand in hand. I would hope that that's apparent the more we get into closer to the end, because this particular story arc will wrap up in issue 5, because issue 6 is just trialing the Amazons.
So the interesting with people who have been used to Wonder Woman and her tales, the Amazons have an interesting, and Wonder Woman as well, the history of her stories tend to follow two paths they tend to go in, and they never intertwine very well. They either do it as a pure superhero story like Batman, Superman, superheroes, or they go the other path, which is magic mythology. And when you're working on Nubia, is there, I feel like both sides miss a little bit if you don't find a way to combine them. Because again, if you do mythology, the issue you have is making the character identifiable to readers. If you go the way of the superhero, you're missing this huge level of foundation that these characters come from, of being based on mythological characters. So once again, how are you walking that path?
So Nubia actually made that path a little clearer, because she was champion of June's Doorway for so long. So I don't know, like that tells me that this character is competent and strong and all of these things that I don't really have to spend a lot of time proving to you, because she's been champion for that long. But also now that she is queen, that means to me she's on, she's on the surface level now, and she would commune with the gods, because I need to show that connection. Like as her being queen of Themyscira, buying into like what those customs are in her own way. So I don't know, like I felt like that her being champion that long was kind of like that cop out, where I'm like, okay, the superhero thing is already kind of baked in there. And we get a chance to show it and not really have to explain a whole lot about it. So the queen stuff opens the door up to the magical and god situation. So Nubia made that a little easier, because what was it, Eternals, for instance? I really enjoyed that movie because I was so, I've been so, I guess, like I spent all of last year just so immersed in Greek mythology and just gods in general, and like making them relatable to other humans. And when you think of them as just hyper realizations, hyper realizations of like emotions and human whatever, then it's a little bit easier. Like, yeah, they're just like us. Just imagine the Real Housewives on 10,000. Like, there you go, right?
That's awesome.
So like with Nubia, I knew that because we were able to have her come out of the Well of Souls. So that's the other thing. She has that connection to man's world, because she was once someone who lived in man's world, died terribly, and now it was within the Well of Souls. So that leaves room for exploration into like origin, which you all will get soon. Nubia was a fun one in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I really found the issues fascinating that you're writing, and kudos for being awesome. Well, one thing is that, once again, having read a lot of comic books and having a lot of I guess they're so-called replacement characters, the ones that take over from the main character, what a lot of writers tend to do to prop up that new character is that they find a way to kind of undermine the older character. Look how much better they are. Like they do a lot in Green Lantern. Like Kyle Rayner was leader, but now he sucks. Now Hal Jordan's back again, and now this character has to suck because he's so much better than Hal Jordan. With Nubia, it feels like you made it, instead of, you kept her unique. Like, because she still has someone who has faults. It doesn't feel like you're trying to fight off Hippolyta, like, this is how much she's better. This is why you got to like her now. It's like giving her a lot of faults. And one of the characters I find that maybe I might be reading it wrong, but to me is how I'm seeing it as the voice piece of those faults and the way to kind of vocalize and give maybe exposition on those faults is a character. I'm probably gonna pronounce the name wrong. If
I mean, your guess is good as mine, but I know
right.
exactly who you're talking about.
All right,
Yes.
okay. For any reader, it begins IPHTHIME. I wrote it down because I'm not gonna be able to say it. But like I said, because you have her a character like that who's routinely pointing out this is where I'm thinking you're wrong, whether or not she is or it's not is debatable. But someone
Yeah.
who can at least say, I think you're screwing up here, is a unique character trait to give to a new character nowadays with replacements.
Yeah, and but the funny thing with that character, she I discovered her in the George Perez run. And she was kind of everything has been given, I think that's how you say her name. I could be wrong. But anyway, like she has been given who like she doesn't hold her tongue, I found in some of those issues. So I was like, okay, so we kind of have somebody that's baked in that if I don't know, like a fan of the older comics or whatever, if that was a character that they happen to remember, which if you do, kudos to you. They'd be like, yeah, like that makes sense that this particular character would be the one to, you know, call Nubia out on her shit. And I think that's important too, that Nubia is shown to have flaws because again, like if she was perfect, why would you why would you care about any growth? And sometimes like when you have a character who is in like a king or a queen or something like T'Challa sometimes suffered from this, where he was written to be like perfect. Like he always kind of had it figured out. He was like the James Bond of Marvel in a way. And then recently, I think with Colt's run, what I did appreciate is that you saw a faulty king and it was on display and he was questioned by his damn Dora Milaje. And he was being questioned a little bit before then too, before Coast picked up that run, but like you really see those seeds blossom. And just thinking of that, I was like, yeah, Queen, I mean, like Nubia was not, like she wasn't training to ever be queen. It's just a role that she ended up taking up because of just her dedication as champion and to be the one to step up to do things that no one else wants to do. So in that, I'm like, yeah, there's got to be some flaws in that girl because again, you've been at this job this long. We got some things that we probably need to unpack. Because all the Amazons do. Because like, yeah, it's a utopia facing place, but you know, sometimes utopia is only a utopia via a perspective. So just, and that's where Medusa comes in to kind of explore that and also, again, question Nubia and her role as champion of Dune's doorway.
Now, and I think that's all, and like I said, I think it's fascinating what you've been doing. And one thing interesting about the Amazon is that here's a group of women that have been alive and Hippolyta's been the leader for thousands of years. We're going back so far. And now you have Nubia as a new leader suddenly. How comfortable are any Amazon with change, considering they never really had to deal? I mean, the way they live is 5,000 years old. I mean, they don't have cars, they don't have cell phones, they don't even seem to be interested. Their way of life has not changed for thousands of years. Nubia is change. Is that inherently a strike against her? Is she?
Absolutely. And I think that's important too, because now you see why there are a number of Amazons who don't care for man's world at all. Like Diana's been there, shown time and time again, like, hey, it's not so bad there. Like we can work with this. And a lot of them are still like, well, absolutely not. No, I don't want anything to do with that. So, I mean, inherently, they would absolutely, some of them would have some problem with this sudden change.
So Nubia being the new leader, is she a natural born leader or is she someone who's stuck being a leader?
I want to say she is a natural born leader, but even in that doesn't mean that if you are, I guess, quote unquote, stuck being a leader because you weren't necessarily ready for it, then there's going to be some friction. Because again, like to go from doing one job for so long, and then the way that she comes into being queen is essentially being someone who step up and to like, hey, I'll look at Medusa. Because no one else would. That's still, I mean, that's one hell of a test. It's an interesting one, but like that's not a questionnaire or anything like that. And Nubia being queen is very different from being champion, because champion, you can punch and slice your way through a lot of stuff. But as queen, you probably could do that, but you probably won't be queen very long. So her having to rely on being a little bit more diplomatic than she's probably had to be in the past, I would imagine would be challenging too.
So it seems like too that she has a something happened in her past connected to her time guarding the Doom's doorway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how soon is that going to be revealed, and how's that going? And when that going to play out?
Ooh, I can't say, but it will be revealed soon.
Okay.
Possibly not in this particular series, but it will be revealed soon.
All right, and obviously somehow Medusa has a relationship with Nubia from their past in the Doom's doorway.
Yeah, so that is so spoiler alert, Andromeda and Nubia have a bit of a past that Nubia has kind of forced herself to forget for reasons. And then, of course, Andromeda wouldn't remember any of that because she came out of the well. It's not until Medusa unlocks some of those memories for her and uses that as kind of know, like kind of her bargaining chip to say, hey, this is why you should not fight me off, and help me with my plan to get what I want back, which is my head. So Nubia, of course, would have a relationship with Medusa previously behind June's doorway because Medusa's back there. And Nubia's been making sure she's the reason why she stayed in there for so long. And I guess Medusa feels some kind of way about it, especially if this person just became queen of the Amazons, because your head was the way there. Like, how offensive is that?
I imagine it'd be very offensive.
Yeah.
So is that why Medusa was the perfect villain to start off to launch the series?
I think so, because Medusa's a complicated villain. And I feel like Nubia needed somebody where it wasn't very black and white with whether or not they were good or bad, but somebody with a complicated history and the way that her situation has been treated. I felt there was a parallel between her and just the Amazons that come to Themyscira. Again, women who have been harmed in unimaginable ways in man's world. And if I recall, a bit of Medusa's story starts that way, and is why she is the way she is. So, you know, how fucked up is it is you're being held prisoner on this island for, like, Medusa has done messed up stuff, but still, given her story, a lot of it is explainable, but to be a prisoner on this island where women who have been harmed in similar fashion that you have been blessed with a second life, and here you are in monster jail. So like what's that conversation? What does that look like for Nubia? How does she handle that? And then also, like, what does that just say about Themyscira on the whole, and just the Amazons and what they've been tasked with by the gods, and how some of it is a little just hypocritical, but that's the gods.
Yeah,
They don't care, they just do stuff.
I find that's all that fascinating because once again you have the reason why the Amazons are there, and part of it is as jailers of the Doom's doorway, and then you have characters who are in that doorway like Medusa, who in many ways their punishment is not their fault; it's due to male gods being dicks, but yet they're being guarded by the women Amazons who are against, in some way, not against men, but they're holding they have serious male issues. It feels like it's a weird contradiction that they live right there, where you're both jailing the things at the cost of male gods, even though you're living in a society against male for that same reason, that you don't trust them.
It is all kind of like, hey, what are we doing here? And it was kind of hard to not even, take that in all consideration and not say, okay, well, we got to explore this a little bit. And even some of the female gods, Athena's role in this, we all know that Hera is ready to take out her anger on any and everyone, and oftentimes she has been irritated, to say the least, towards the Amazons because of her husband and just other stuff. So it's all very complicated, but so fun because it is so complicated, because how is any of this working, and like what are the ramifications for either going against the gods or not following suit in the exact way that they want you to. So again, like all really kind of fun things to play with, all things considered, with Nubia being essentially stuck on Themyscira right now as queen. Because I'm like, man, like, what the hell are we gonna do like on Themyscira for 6 issues? But there's a lot of stuff to do if you focus on kind of the interpersonal things and not, again, like, I don't know, like this big behemoth wave is gonna crash into Themyscira if we don't stop these these monsters down below solving their problem.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
causing it.
yeah, and I think one of the smartest things that's done in the series is that you have the little history lessons, and
Yeah,
and,
I
and,
love
and,
this.
and the way the pages look, they actually do look like old scrolls or something. It's so cool, and as you know, as someone who's I'm an English teacher, so I look at that, I'm just like, that's a wonderful way to like describe what's going on in that story. You know,
Yeah, and
it's just
not
a good
make it seem,
addition.
yeah, like make the exposition fun, because sometimes you got to do it. But if it's given in a fun way, then hopefully people will forgive you for it. But that inspiration really came from the newer X books. So those text pages or like the redacted stuff. I'm like, I really love this. Aesthetically, it's just great. So let's do something similar for Nubia.
So another thing that issue 4 does that is interesting is that when Nubia enters the Doom's doorway, she mentions basically that a lot of the creatures that are not where they're supposed to be, and she's kind of she mentions it, but she's still focused on Medusa, so that's kind of where the direction she's headed in. So is that suggesting that it's not Medusa and there's something bigger going on there as well that we're eventually going to hit too soon?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Big up Child of the Amazons. I'll say that much.
All right, very cool. So is Nubia and the Amazon, is that this going to be a miniseries or ongoing?
So it's a mini series, but there is more Nubia on the way.
In can you hint at what way that is? That
I
another
can't.
series for Nubia, or is this
I
a
don't
big
know.
event?
It could be. It could just be the big event. It could be some other things. Just just know that Nubia is not going back on the shelf.
If you know like Morse code, you can tap it out as an answer. I'll decode it later. So what can our listeners look forward to for future issues of Nubia and the Amazons?
All right, so issue 5 will be out 2/15, so just after Valentine's Day. So please pick it up if you are so inclined to do so. Trial of the Amazons, the first issue is out in March. So pick that up because Nubia ties right into that. And then Nubia and the Amazon 6 will be out in April. And then we got a lot of year left and a lot more Nubia left is what I'll say there. But all of that, if you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at Steph_I_Will, you can see some of the updates and stuff there. And then also whitestep.com, my website. So just pay attention to my space. There's good news on the way.
All right, very cool. Ms. Williams, it was a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to reading more Nubia and the Amazons and whatever comes up next, which is apparently very interesting.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Have a fantastic night.
You too.